Podcast City Network. Hey guys, we're here for another live episode of Final Score, episode 42 here on Facebook Live. I'm Chris, that's Craig. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning, even though there's a lot of people being loud outside. They need to calm down.
Yeah, it's unusually hot. I mean, it's 75 degrees here in Florida. I mean, not bragging, but humble brag, whatever. But
totally bragging.
Totally bragging. But it's also, people, I guess, doing like roofs and shit. I don't know. But
take advantage when the weather's nice at this time of year, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But more importantly, Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
The first show of 2020 for us.
That's right.
Happy New Year to you. How was
Happy New Year to you.
How was your New Year's?
It was very relaxed. I took an old man approach. I sat on my couch with my wife, had some beers, watched the ball drop, and had children nagging me to watch the ball drop, so they joined as well, sitting amongst the floor. And this is, I don't know, it was nice, but, maybe next year I'll get a little more wild, but I don't know, I'm getting up there now. It's hard to keep going like I was young, It's
right.
different when you're 22 versus 32, so, gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, you gotta do your job. Mine was pretty laid back.
Yeah.
I had to work, actually, New Year's Eve, which was kind of sucked, but it was cool. I got a chance to go hang out with some friends and the girlfriend and that before the ball dropped and all that. So, yeah, it was good. And then New Year's Day, watched some football, unfortunately. And
yes.
Yeah.
Which we'll touch more on that later.
Yeah, we'll touch more in a few minutes.
But yeah, it wasn't too bad, but we hope everyone had a very safe New Year's. Sometimes these times can get crazy, especially when alcohol and explosives are involved. Just ask one JPP.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, hopefully everybody had a real safe one, and we can knock out 2020 to be a real awesome one. We're now in a new decade, which means another decade of sports. So we're going to hit it right off the top and jump right into some college football amazingness. But to make sure that you know everything that's going on when we talk about these things, you got to follow Final Score on social media, which is very important, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's real easy. If you don't know where to find it, oh my goodness, I'm hitting the wrong one. There it is, right here, right above us.
Right up there in the corner.
There, at PCN Final Score on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Give us a like, give us a follow. Very importantly, though, give us a rating. Let us know how we're doing. We always try to bring the very best show that we can to you guys, the fans. So just let us know, and we'll try to be better. I'm sorry. Gosh. New year, new Final Score. But also to make sure that you keep up with all the great episodes and other content that we come out with, all you have to do is go over to our social media, not social media, we already did that one, to our content platforms on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn, and more importantly, Google Play Music. It's always the last one, but don't forget it. It's just as important. All you have to do is go on and search keyword Final Score, one word, and make sure that you give us a follow there. That way, you can get that nice notification when we drop a new episode, like today's episode, which will probably be dropped today, tomorrow. I don't know. It's going to be a crazy day. I got to make up Christmas, so we'll see how it all works out. But still, make sure you go follow. That way, you can always stay up to date with all the very latest. And again, because I like my arrows, right down there. Just check it out.
Right down there. Yeah. So many platforms that we have. That's actually one of our big goals this year. Is we want to. We're actually pretty aggressive, I think, in how we want to approach this new year. Definitely. We're talking about a little bit of a format change to help make it a little bit of a shorter show, because obviously, those of you that stick around and watch us for the 2 hours that we do this, first of all, thank you. Yes. That's awesome.
You're the real MVP.
And you're the real MVP. But we want to try to make it a little bit more condensed, a little bit better show, a little bit more of like a back and forth versus presentation style. And we want to grow. I mean, obviously every podcast wants to grow, but we want to try aggressively grow this year,
and that's not just in our midsections.
Yeah, not that. Actually, I'm shrinking that already.
Yeah, you're doing a great job, sir.
I've been at it for a couple weeks, even before the New Year's resolution people got in the gym.
See, you're also the true MVP. You're doing it before the New Year hits. Which means you might actually stick to it. Hopefully,
true, very true.
I haven't gotten back going yet, so
it's okay. You can, if you want to come out and work out with me at 7 a.m. every day.
God, that sounds painful.
Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. You heard. Keep him accountable. Keep him accountable. Let's do it.
Gosh, I know this is going to happen today. All right.
You're going to hate me.
We're going to try it. We're going to try it, though. But still, we got a lot of things to talk about today, so we're going to jump right into college football, which we're in college bowl season. We're nearing its end. There's been so many great games, so many great things happening. But, man, some of these conferences, a little bit of a head-scratcher of how they performed overall. What do you think?
Yeah, there was obviously with the bowl season the way it is, we all love college football.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can't get enough college football.
It's an addiction.
We love college football so much that there are mid-December bowl games of 6-6 teams battling it out.
Hey, Nevada was 7-5.
I mean, you're right, and they lost to a 6-6 Ohio.
They did.
But I mean, to be fair, Ohio is usually a pretty good school in the MAC, but that's a different rabbit hole. We don't have to go down that.
This is showing our addiction to college football.
Exactly, it's showing how how addicted everyone is to college football, and all the conferences. Everyone wants to talk about who's the best conference. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a pretty good indicator of where the conferences kind of stack up.
It definitely is. Of
course, matchups and like the bowls and the level of those kind of play into it. But, I mean, you get a pretty good idea of what schools, where schools rank.
Especially when you're looking at conferences like the American Athletic Conference. They had 7 teams make bowl games. They're currently 3-3 with one more game left. But looking at it, it's crazy to see these teams that are ranked. You got Navy up there. It's 11-2. Cincinnati now 11-3. Memphis 12-2 after handling Penn State in the Cotton Bowl. Like, the American Athletic Conference used to be just completely written off after the Big East dissolved, and now we're sitting here looking that, hey, they got some teams that can play some ball.
Absolutely. And, talking about UCF, their season and kind of the tumultuous season they've had, they ended up on a nice note. 10 wins, bowl game win, even though it was against a team like Marshall, which wasn't that great. But
hey, win's a win.
But yeah, a win's a win. The offense looked really good. The team just in general looked like they're ready to build. And Heupel is finally like, it's his team now. Like he's had it for now a couple years, and these are kind of his guys that are coming in. So to be able to say that you have a 10-win season is a really small class. They've had 10-win seasons over the last 3 or 4 years. There's only 5 schools that have done that.
Yeah. Very few have been able to actually achieve that. Most of them from power conferences. So.
Yeah. So most of the fans that live around here, the UCF fans that we talk to, and bitch and complain about they're not undefeated. Chill out, man. You just got a 10-win season, and you're still now with FAU losing Lane Kiffin and
Willie Taggart taking over.
Willie Taggart taking over. Your recruiting's about to get way better. Yeah. So you should be fine.
Yeah, pretty much the only ones you're going to be really competing with is going to be Florida, because Florida had a great season under Dan Mullen and ended up having their big bowl win against Virginia in the Orange Bowl, which highlighted a kind of a dismal streak for the ACC. I feel like this bowl season, currently 4-6 out of the 10 teams that they had make bowl games. So UCF, calm down. You're going to be in the conversation still. Who knows? Maybe we see another conference realignment in the future. We might actually see them move to a power conference, because given their performance and now the players have been able to get into the NFL, you can't really count them out.
UCF is the Boise State of this last decade.
Absolutely.
And nobody wants to play them.
No.
And nobody wants them in the conference. That's why when Boise State was on their run, I was slamming my fist on the table saying that Boise State should have jumped from the Mountain West, which they did make that jump from the WAC. Mm-hmm. They should have jumped to the Mountain West and then jumped again to the Pac-12.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, because Utah did it. They'd be a much better fit than Colorado. Mm-hmm. Colorado's, no offense, their athletic program is garbage.
I mean, they've been able to pull out some decent seasons recently, and I feel have done better than when they were in the Big 12, but still, I have to agree, overall, the program is nowhere near where it used to be, say, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So I feel maybe Boise State definitely would have been a much better fit than Colorado.
It would have been a great fit, but UCF is that school right now. Like, they talked about they want to move up to a bigger conference, but SEC obviously will look down on them. They don't want them. ACC doesn't want them because you already got Florida State and Miami in that conference. Like they're gonna nix that as much as they can. So there's really nowhere for them to go. But enjoy the window while you have it. Actually, the American Athletic Conference going 3-3. They got one more bowl game left, which is today. Actually, it's actually about to kick off in a few minutes.
Yes, that's right.
Tulane and Southern Miss in the Armed Forces Bowl, and you got Navy won, Cincinnati won, UCF won, the top teams won. Memphis played really well against Penn State. I mean, you can't ask for more than that. SMU, you don't know what happened. Like, FAU played really well. SMU didn't really show up. So, but I mean, they actually showed pretty well. Now, you mentioned the ACC. ACC,
it was dismal.
It's literally Clemson and everybody else.
Absolutely.
The one I want to highlight on here is Miami.
Yeah, that was horrible.
First of all, not only they get into a bowl game at 6-6, which shouldn't be allowed, but because it's Miami, they probably let them in.
Well, of course. You go for the name recognition because at the end of the day, they fell all the way to the Independence Bowl and was playing Louisiana Tech. And you're going to try and go for any name recognition you can to be able to sell tickets. It's just part of the entire bowl scape because at the end of the day, it's all about money, which we've proven time and time again. Thank you, NCAA. So at the end of the day, the Canes go in after having this very dismal 6-6 season and lose 14-0 to Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, not only that, the defense didn't play half bad. The offense was hot garbage. Hot garbage. Horrible. You get blanked by Louisiana Tech, who historically doesn't play much defense. They're an offensive-powered team. Mm-hmm. And you can't even score a field goal, a touchdown, nothing. Manny Diaz has got a really big mountain to climb.
Oh, really big.
I honestly, and as quickly as they were kind of putting the pressure on Mark Richt, a guy who's had success at Georgia. What do you think they're going to do to Manny Diaz if he can't get an 8 or 9 win season next year? He might be on the chopping block already.
I think he automatically will because you have to have success in Miami. Miami was built as a program that had tradition, had actual success, winning multiple national championships in the 80s, 90s, was pushing it even to the 2000s. And now, what have you done in the past 20 years, realistically?
Right.
This has been a program on the decline. They're not trying to have people come in and wreck it further. So every coach that comes in is going to be on a short leash, automatic. So if you can't get it done in year 1, year 2, you're gone. So hopefully Miami can try and weather the storm, though. Maybe they'll find a little bit more success next year. But I agree. If they don't hit 8 wins, he's done.
Yeah, he's going to have to be done. The other teams that lost from the ACC, Wake Forest, they finished 8-5. They had a really hot start to the season, and they just fell off. They lost to Michigan State, who's really been struggling. Virginia lost to Florida. Florida, they look really good.
Yeah, it's only an 8-point win. Florida was able to come out, played great offensively, defensively, but Virginia kept pushing back. Even after they got completely blown out in the ACC championship game against Clemson, they still had a strong showing in the Orange Bowl against a really good Florida squad that was challenging for the SEC title at one point this season. So definitely hats off for the kind of job Virginia did hanging in there, but they still ended up losing 36-28.
And this is, and you talk about Virginia Tech lost a close game to Kentucky. That was I watched parts of that game. That was an interesting watch. Florida State lost, dropped to 6-7. Boston College lost to dropped to 6-7. They got trounced by Cincinnati.
That's a good Cincinnati team, to be fair.
It is a good Cincinnati team, but this is kind of the argument that everyone's been saying. You've got 3 teams in the ACC that made it at 6-6 and all freaking lost, but they're big-ish names: Florida State, Boston College, Miami. Please, can we get rid of these 6-6 teams?
Well, North Carolina was the only exception. They went in at 6-6 and were able to blow out Temple and ended up being 7-6. But honestly, Mac Brown has done a great job with what he had to work with, given all the type of pressure North Carolina and that entire athletic program is under right now.
Watch out for that team. Mac Brown, you saw some of the games. The game they had against Clemson earlier this year, they stuck with them. They had a chance to win that game.
They're the only ones that challenged Clemson all year.
Yeah, they are. So. And, it's going to be... It's going to be fun to watch. If you are a North Carolina fan, football, I think, is on the come up for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Mac Brown, also good recruiter. So just watch out.
Great recruiter.
Just watch out. But obviously, Clemson's been rolling. They ended up beating Ohio State 29-23 in the Fiesta Bowl as part of the college football playoff, which is really the bright spot of all these games when you look at it. Because even with the wins they had, outside of North Carolina, Pittsburgh only won by 4 against Eastern Michigan. Louisville won only by 10. Mississippi State had a really down year and just fired their head coach. So obviously that wasn't as big of a win as it could have been. But Clemson keeps rolling, came back and beat Ohio State 29-23, and now is going to play in the college football national championship game against LSU here on January 13th.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the national championship game next week. We're going to have basically our whole segment's going to be dedicated to previewing that game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Clemson had a really tight game against Ohio State. what you will on either side, but refereeing's been horrible across not only college football, NFL too. I don't know what the hell's in the water that they're drinking.
Oh, I know.
But
it's absolutely ridiculous.
Officiating's been downright atrocious this year.
You want to know what's funny with the Wisconsin-Oregon Rose Bowl game and how they had that bad pass interference call?
Right.
There's now a Wisconsin optometrist offering free eye exams for NCAA referees, free of charge.
I love
attached. Just because of obviously they must have some type of eyesight problem.
That's great. I love it.
It's great stuff. I love it. Absolutely
That would
love
be
it.
fantastic. Oh my God, that'd be so funny.
But looking at the Big Ten had kind of an interesting start. Now 4-5 with all 9 of their teams. Ohio State was their biggest that they were hoping to make some kind of advancement. Ended up losing to Clemson, but you had Wisconsin lose the Rose Bowl to Oregon, Michigan. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Illinois ended up losing to Cal in the Red Box Bowl. It was crazy. Washington State, Iowa, and Penn State and Minnesota. Those were the only teams really to pull anything off. Honestly, good wins, though. Minnesota ended up beating Auburn, who was able to upset the likes of Alabama this year. So, definitely a good win for that program, especially moving forward. Minnesota also getting the offensive coordinator from Utah State to come over to be the new offense coordinator for the Golden Gophers. So I think it was going to be a real good move. So definitely watch out for Minnesota and PJ Fleck-led, what we going to call them, the boat rowers now?
Row the boat.
Row the boat.
Sky you ma, row the boat. But the big thing I want to touch on for the Big Ten is not only they sent 9 teams, 6 of those were ranked.
Yes.
And the ranked teams went 3-3. Obviously, the tough game in the Rose Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl for Wisconsin, Ohio State. Michigan's game, I'll talk about that in a minute. But Iowa beating USC. USC looked like they didn't belong there. Penn State over Memphis. Memphis gave them a big handful, but they were able to pull that game out. Minnesota, you just touched on it, a big, huge upset over Auburn.
I think that's honestly the biggest
powerful SEC, even though they did do pretty well in the bowl season. But
But honestly, this is the biggest win I feel for the Big Ten because you did just get a marquee win against a really good SEC squad. That,
absolutely.
Like we said earlier, upset Alabama and played every single team in the SEC close, even LSU. So it's great to see them be able to get this win, especially for that program. That program has been downtrodden for so long, so it's great to see them come out and get this kind of win.
Yeah, I think Jerry Till was the last coach that was any remotely successful at Minnesota. And, of course, he had his health issues that kind of forced him to step down. But with Minnesota, great season. Enjoy this season. Don't expect to get 11 wins every year. Just saying. But I think with PJ Fleck there, you can expect at least 8 to 9 wins every year. You'll probably fall in that 9 to 10, 8 to 10 range, which for Minnesota is very good. You're going to compete with Wisconsin. I mean, they had a chance to make the Big Ten championship game this year.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the next step for Fleck. And I saw what he did at Western Michigan, and most people saw get to the Cotton Bowl, but they didn't see the process. He's a hell of a recruiter. He's a hell of a motivator, and his guys love to play for him. I think the future is very bright for Minnesota.
Absolutely it is. But looking at some of the other ones, this is very dismal. The Big 12 went 1-5 with the 6 teams that represented the conference in bowl games. 3 of those teams were ranked. The only win coming from unranked Texas, who upset number 11 Utah in the Alamo Bowl. Nobody saw that one coming. Ended up winning that one by 28 points.
Yeah, that game, I don't know if Utah was just so upset the fact that they didn't make the playoff, that they just kind of didn't show up, or Texas was more. I think Texas just wanted that statement win more. They were more amped to play than Utah. Utah, like, people try to say, like, well, if you can't get up for a bowl game, you don't deserve to play college football and stuff like that. Like, I understand players get motivated to play bowl games. I get it, but I think Texas just wanted it more, and they came out and just made a big statement, being the only win there. The big disappointment here, obviously, Oklahoma State against Texas A&M. That was a very close game.
Very close.
Oklahoma State led for a good amount of that. Iowa State just ran into a far superior team in Notre Dame. Baylor looked outmatched against Georgia from the snap, first snap.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And Kansas State lost a tough game to Navy. That was a big back and forth game.
Navy's a good team, really good team.
Right. And Oklahoma, I'm sorry.
That was embarrassing.
Oklahoma should be banned from any big college football playoff game, BCS bowl game. I don't care. get them out because they choke every single time. But LSU is a far superior team.
That's the thing is to describe what LSU did to Oklahoma, but also what they did for the landscape
not safe
of college
for
football.
children.
Definitely not safe for children. But they broke every offensive record there was, not only for a bowl game, but for the college football playoff as well. It was absolutely amazing. Joe Burrow throws for 7 touchdowns and runs for another. And 7 of those touchdowns first half.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were coasting in the second half.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's absolutely crazy to see what they did yardage-wise, efficiency-wise. Everything across the board was absolutely amazing. The thing is this was going to be a weak matchup from the get-go just because of the fact the Big 12 teams really don't play defense. Maybe the NCAA needs to go ahead and maybe pass some legislation or try to get a push to try and get some defensive coordinators to actually go to these Big 12 schools, teach them how to play defense. Because otherwise you're not going to see a Big 12 team probably win the national championship anytime in the near future.
I don't think any Big 12 team has the talent level to just compete with some of these other schools.
Oh, definitely not.
You see all the offensive firepower and what Lincoln Riley and Mike Gundy do with the Oklahoma schools, and Texas is kind of coming back, but.
We'll see.
You got to play defense. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Conference USA had 8 teams. They went 3-4. Losses were Charlotte, UAB, Florida International, Marshall. Wins were by Florida Atlantic, Louisiana Tech, and Western Kentucky. Mm-hmm. I think the big one here, Florida Atlantic, because you lost Lane Kiffin, but you are gaining Willie Taggart. Mm-hmm. You still finished with the 11-win season. That's probably the team yet again to beat in the Conference USA moving into next season.
Absolutely have to agree. And we still have the Southern Miss game against Tulane later on in the Armed Forces Bowl that is kicking off in
matter of minutes.
Mere minutes. So we'll definitely see how they round out. Maybe see if they can get back to 500 and 4-4 on the year. Looking at the independents, though, we got BYU went out and lost to Hawaii in the Hawaii Bowl, but we know Hawaii historically plays great at home. Liberty ended up picking up a win over Georgia Southern. And Notre Dame, we'll talk about that one in a little bit.
Talk about Notre Dame in a second. But here, Liberty, 8-5. Now remember, this is the same Liberty team that is their first season as a Division I FBS program. They played Syracuse at home in week 1, which is a big game. 8-5, I think this is really going to show you that doesn't matter what level you're at. Appalachian State, the same thing. As soon as they came into FBS, they just started destroying the Sun Belt. Mm-hmm. So I honestly think Liberty. Trying to remember where Liberty is to be honest.
Up in the Northeast, if I'm not mistaken.
Northeast,
with Hugh Freeze now as coach.
Yeah, that's another kind of a really interesting story too, with his health issues and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, big season for Liberty in their first season as an FBS, and then of course I know you want to chat a little bit about your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So
we'll do that in a little bit.
Table that for a minute.
Yeah, but looking at the Mid-American, they had 7 teams that made it to the bowl season. 3-3 currently with losses by Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan. Man, the Michigans just can't get it done at this bowl season, it seems like. But did have wins from Buffalo, Kent State, and Ohio. Still have Miami of Ohio left, who's going to be playing Louisiana here.
2 days.
In 2 days, 7:30 p.m. So definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, big things here. Central Michigan just ran into a buzzsaw. San Diego State has had some of the best. They played some of the best defense all year in college football. That shows there. Eastern Michigan shouldn't even have been a bowl game. They lost to a Pitt team that was 8-5. Western Michigan should have won the game against Western Kentucky. But yet again, Tim Lester and his almighty, all-knowing coaching ability literally screwed the pooch and lost the game.
I feel like you're a little.
He had a chance.
A little salty.
He had a chance to punt the ball away with about a minute to go, give or take, and force Western Kentucky into deep their own territory. What does he do? Goes for it on 4th down, doesn't get it. Western Kentucky marches down the field in a somewhat short field and
kicks the field goal.
They kick a field goal to win. Western Michigan could have punted. They could have tried to kick a long field goal. But what do? He goes for it. And I could really go off on a tirade right now, but I'm not going to, because Tim Lester has now, this next year is going to be his guys. Up until now, it's been mostly flex guys and borderline guys that might have played, but now they're stuck in this now his guys are here. He's got a decent draft class, another top MAC draft class coming into Western Michigan. Now next year, bro, if you don't at least make the MAC championship game or get 8 or 9 wins, you should be freaking fired. Like, there's no question. I don't give a shit how close he is with the AD, Kathy Beauregard, who's a great AD, by the way. Mm-hmm. But don't let your personal feelings get in, like, with trying to expand your program. Mm-hmm. College football is literally becoming haves and have-nots. Mm-hmm. Don't become a have-not. That's it. That's all I got.
You're not upset at all, are you?
Maybe a little bit.
I think there's
just a little bit.
Just a little salt thrown on there.
Not salt. It's called passion. I call it passion. You call it salt, I call it passion.
Either way, when we're looking at the Mountain West, they had 7 teams that ended up making it to the bowl season, going 4-3 overall. They had losses from Utah State, number 19 Boise State, and a huge upset to Washington. San Diego State, though, got a good win along with Hawaii, Air Force, and Wyoming. Nevada, though, lost that little squeaker to Ohio yesterday in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. So definitely really interesting to see how their bowl season went. But hey, they finished with a positive mark. Yeah,
the big thing here, 4-3, but the big wins they got, San Diego State, 10-win team now. Hawaii finished off strong. Air Force, 11-win season.
Yep.
Boise State was a bit of a disappointment because they were borderline the best group of 5 team.
But how they lost.
Yeah. But losing 38-7 is not really not a good showing for the Mountain West. But
most definitely not.
Next year, Boise State's probably going to be near that top. They're probably going to be preseason ranked yet again.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, Mountain West still, that's about where they usually are.
Most definitely. Looking at the Pac-12, they had 7 teams that made it, also going 4-3. Washington State ended up losing to Air Force in a close battle. Air Force looked great this year, though. Utah had their huge upset loss to Texas, and Southern Cal also losing in an upset to Iowa, but had good wins, though, from Washington upsetting Boise State. Cal ended up getting their good win against Illinois, Arizona State topping Florida State, and, of course, the big one for the Pac-12, which was number 6 Oregon defeating number 8 Wisconsin in a classic in the Rose Bowl.
Absolutely. Utah, USC looked absolutely outmatched in their bowl games, but Oregon getting a big Rose Bowl win. Justin Herbert had 3 touchdowns on the ground and didn't really throw the ball very well, which is kind of a question mark with him going into the draft now.
Definitely.
But what he can do with his legs, you saw that in the bowl game. For Coach Cristobal there in Oregon, they yet again are kind of back up to near the top of the Pac-12, where they ultimately have been for roughly the last decade.
Yeah, roughly. And it's been interesting to see the rise. But overall, the Pac-12 has been trying to make a lot of headway, trying to advance themselves forward. And I think it's shown, especially this season, where a lot of teams were able to break through and be able to be in this position, even winning bowl games. Like Cal's a great story as well. That was a team that had been downtrodden for a long time. And I think they were able to get a win.
I think probably the Pac-12 is most disappointed in the fact they couldn't get into the college football playoff because Oregon lost a game they should not have lost.
Definitely.
Actually ended up losing 2 games. But they still had a chance to make the playoff even before they lost on the road at Arizona State. Utah, you probably were hoping Utah would have won the Pac-12 championship instead of getting their asses kicked by Oregon. So that way maybe Utah makes that playoff. But I think Utah, that result against Texas probably would have been the same thing that happened against LSU.
Yeah, most definitely.
So it's kind of what are you really looking for? I know Pac-12 next year, their goal is to get somebody in the playoff. I don't think they've had a single. They had Oregon once.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was it. And they've only had one team ever make the playoff. So that's got to be their goal next year is get a team into the playoff.
But looking at the SEC, they had a nice crop of 9 teams make the actual bowl season, going 7-2 overall, with only losses coming from Mississippi State, who lost to Louisville, and Auburn, who lost in an upset to number 18 Minnesota. However, the rest of the way down, it is winning. Texas A&M gets the big win against Oklahoma State. Kentucky beats Virginia Tech. Tennessee knocked out Indiana. Florida gets a huge Orange Bowl win against Virginia. Alabama, we'll touch on that in a minute. And then, of course, Georgia gets their big win against Baylor, and LSU did the absolute demolition of Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl.
And with all the hype that SEC gets about they're the best conference, I mean, when you go 7-2 in your bowl games, and some of these matchups are, I mean, they're good matchups. I mean, Texas A&M had a great matchup. Kentucky had a great matchup. Florida, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. And all those teams, those top-tier teams, except for Auburn, all won. And, we're overmatched in their, they overpowered the teams that they faced,
Absolutely.
which is, I think, the big thing. I think the biggest surprise here, Tennessee went 8-5.
Yeah,
like,
they
stop
started
the
horrible.
presses. Stop the presses. They went 8-5. Like, yeah, 7-5 in the regular season, but 8-win season. When's the last time Tennessee had a winning season?
Well, they started the season so horrifically. Nobody thought that there would be a chance Tennessee could come back like this.
Absolutely. It's a great season by Tennessee, especially like you said, is how bad they started. I mean, you got to be optimistic here. Don't get way too optimistic if you're Tennessee fans.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, next year, try to shoot for an 8-win regular season.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 7. Try to get one more win, you know? I mean,
they're on the up and up, so definitely keep pushing. Things will happen. Just like for some of these other teams in the Sun Belt, had 5 teams that made it in. Still 1 game left with Louisiana playing Miami of Ohio in 2 days at 7:30. But we had Georgia Southern had their close loss to Liberty. Obviously, Liberty's a really good team. Georgia State lost in surprising fashion to Wyoming. But Appalachian State rolled to a 13-1 season and ended up beating UAB in the New Orleans Bowl and beat them pretty handily. The score was not reflective of the game. They did win 31-17, but absolutely great to see what they did. Arkansas State also beat FIU, so great things happening in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, the class of this conference is obviously Appalachian State. Arkansas State always has that big offense that they have, and then Louisiana Lafayette is what they have their bowl game in 2 days, the Lending Tree Bowl against Miami, Ohio. But I think the big thing here is Appalachian State finishes 13-1. They are the class of the Sun Belt right now, as they should be. They've been a great program for 2 decades now across FCS and FBS. So great showing by the Sun Belt. Most of the games outside of 1 loss have been all fairly good competitive games. So in the smaller schools, that's really what you want. Is you obviously want to win, but you want to stay competitive, and you want to show the recruits that, hey, we can compete with all these other schools that you might be talking to.
Absolutely. But now looking at the games that were near and dear to our heart this bowl season, we'll start with number 15, Notre Dame, who ended up playing in the Camping World Bowl. Wow, can't English today.
Yeah.
It ended up getting a huge
trend for you.
Huge win. It is a trend, especially once I get to the weekend. I've been talking so much all week. But looking at the great game they had, they ended up taking this one 33-9, absolutely demolishing it. There was a lot of flack, though, because people thought Notre Dame deserved a better bowl, a better opponent, but found out they ended up getting, I think it was like $5 or $6 million payday off this bowl game. So probably a lot of the reason why they took it to begin with. But looking at the Irish, though, 11-2 now, absolutely playing a great season. Only had losses to your Michigan Wolverines and to the Georgia Bulldogs on the road. It was a really close matchup. But looking at how they played the last 5 games of their season, they won by 3 touchdowns or more every single game. And there was even a ranked game against Navy in there. So it's crazy to think that through that time, Notre Dame's only able to rise 1 ranking in the rankings during those 5 weeks. So I honestly think Notre Dame deserved more, but I think this is going to set up great going into next year. Ian Book has already said he's returning. They are losing Tony Jones Jr., who was our top running back this year. He is entering the NFL draft, but right now they are looking to have a really great receiving core and have a couple transfers coming in. Safety from Ohio State's coming in. They're getting a wide receiver from Northwestern as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how Notre Dame stacks up going into 2020.
The big thing that hurt Notre Dame was losing to Michigan. After that, they got zero respect.
Yeah.
If they win that game, I think they're borderline college football playoff, and then you've got a much better bowl game. I mean, we could have gave you Alabama. We would have gladly switched places with you. And we would have played Iowa State. I'm getting so excited that I moved my microphone. We would have much rather given you Iowa State and or have you give us them and we give you Alabama.
Yeah,
that would be great.
I'm sure anybody would have done that.
Yeah, it would be great. The one team that Michigan did not want to see in a bowl game was Alabama, and there was a lot of rumors running up to before that was actually accepted that Michigan was going to decline a Citrus Bowl invite because Alabama would be there.
Yeah.
They ended up accepting, and everyone from the outset, myself included, knew that this was not going to be a good game. But to Michigan's credit, the first half very competitive. We had the lead going into halftime. But the thing that really killed Michigan, we had 16 points all in the first half. And of those, I mean, we had multiple field goals. You can't trade field goals for touchdowns against anybody, let alone Alabama.
No.
For Michigan, this is your ceiling. And I've being completely 100% honest, not biased, even though the fact that I'm a huge Michigan fan my whole entire life. This is our ceiling right now. Ohio State is on a historic run that they've never seen in their program before over the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. They've never seen this kind of success. And you're not beating them. We've taken recruits away from Michigan State. So, okay, we're probably the best team in that state. Mm-hmm. But looking at Penn State's usually reloading, Wisconsin, that game on the road, losing there, that's tough, but they had that circled all year. So, to sum up the season, now next year, you've got to have another make or break season. Mm-hmm. Harbaugh will never get fired because of the fact it's who are you going to replace him with? There's nobody right now in my mind that could be able to replace him and not have like a Rich Rod effect happen.
Right.
So that's where that's sitting. And I think Michigan right now, 9 wins, that's your ceiling. Enjoy it right now. Maybe over the next couple of years, if Ryan Day kind of trickles off like Luke Fickell kind of coach, then you might have a chance to consistently beat Ohio State. But I don't see it. 9 wins is your ceiling.
They beat you guys bad.
We don't want to accept it, but we have to accept it and be realistic right now. So that's all I got. Shea Patterson, super inconsistent quarterback, not what everyone expected him to be, myself included. The 2 guys behind him, Joe Milton and Dylan McCaffrey, both very talented guys.
Definitely.
Both inaccurate quarterbacks. Great. We're back to square one. So we'll see what happens with Michigan going into the recruiting season.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting, but both season as a whole has been really exciting. A lot of great games, a lot of surprises, especially when it came to the Peach Bowl, obviously for a lot of people. But we still have a couple games left, but the big one everybody's going to be looking forward to is going to be the College Football Playoff Championship game for the National Championship. That's going to take place Monday, January 13th at 8 p.m. in New Orleans at the Superdome between LSU and Clemson. We will preview this game in its entirety next week on episode 43, so definitely make sure to check back, and we're going to knock that joker out. It's going to be a real fun time, but we're going to switch gears here over to the NFL. There's been a lot of craziness happening, and now we are set for playoffs, baby. It's time to take a look at our wild card preview.
Yeah, today we got the AFC teams. Number 5 seeded Buffalo Bills at 10-6 travel to Houston, who's also 10-6. 4:35 game that's on a simulcast on ESPN, ABC. These 2 teams have not met this season.
Nope.
But Buffalo, much better season than both of us predicted.
Most definitely.
We actually went over those. So we're actually going to preview that. I think next week we're talking to compare what did we expect going into the season versus what actually happened. Some of our picks were spot on.
Yeah, we had some that were very, very spot on, but some that were really
way
far off base. So we'll definitely take a look at that next week.
But that'll be fun. For this game, the big matchup of this game that we're discussing, Bills defense versus Deshaun Watson.
Absolutely. This is going to be a great matchup. The Bills defense has been absolutely amazing. Second in points allowed this season with only 16.2. Third in yards with under 300, with only being beat out by the likes of, the Patriots and other great defenses. But the Bills have been able to hang in all year long, have been able to get 23 total team turnovers. And the big thing that I look at is with cornerback Tre'Davious White. Been playing absolutely amazing. Has 58 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 6 interceptions, and a sack this season. And he's going to be a huge playmaker for the Bills if they're going to have any chance of stopping Deshaun Watson. But let's not forget, Buffalo and Houston may not have played this season, but they did play last season, and a lot of the same players were in those games. And looking at that game, Buffalo held Deshaun Watson to only 177 yards passing, 2 yards rushing, and 13 total points, as they ended up going on to win that game 20-13 while also racking up 2 picks and 7 sacks. So this defense was very, very, very effective against this offense. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. But what does Deshaun Watson got to bring to this game?
Deshaun Watson so far, he's had a great 2019. He's got almost 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. On the ground, 400 yards and 7 touchdowns. He's even caught a pass for 6 yards and a touchdown.
Oh, man. Does it all.
The big thing here, Texans offense ranked 13 overall, passing is 15, and the rushing is 9. So, I mean, if you really want to succeed in this game, you talked about the matchup against the Bills defense. Watson has to not make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And he has to stay upright. The Texans have been proven they cannot pass block for the quarterback at all in the last couple of years. That's going to be the big key. Can Watson not make mistakes? Can he limit those mistakes? And can he not take sacks? That's going to be the big thing for Deshaun Watson going into this game.
Absolutely, and big news coming into this game. Keke Coutee will be playing in this game. However, Will Fuller has been ruled out, so a huge blow to that wide receiver core. It's looking to be DeAndre Hopkins as the number 1, Keke Coutee as the number 2, so we'll definitely see how that plays out going into this game. But who do you got winning this one?
I'm going to take the Bills in an upset.
Ooh.
Because of the back of that defense that you so eloquently put, one of the best defenses in the NFL this year, and they've not played like slouch teams.
This is true.
And I think with the inability of the Texans to block for the quarterback, and Deshaun Watson has had great games, he's also had some really rough games as well. I'm going to pick the Bills defense to carry this team. Josh Allen will make just enough plays against the returning J.J. Watt in that defense, and I think the Bills are going to win a tight game, but they're going to have a big upset on the road.
Honestly, I think the Texans are going to be the ones to be able to take this game, because while the Bills defense does actually show a very, very hard matchup for this Texans offense and Deshaun Watson, I feel that they are able to learn from their mistakes from last year, will be able to overcome the 2 interceptions and 7 sacks that they let up with a much improved offensive line to be able to start moving this ball a little bit down the field. Now, I'm not saying the Bills aren't going to find success. They will find success against this offense, but I think the Texans are going to have just enough and be able to outperform the Bills offense to be able to get enough points to take out this game. And let's not forget, like you said, J.J. Watt, I think, is going to have a monster game in his first game back after going out with injury. But looking at our next matchup in our other AFC game, wildcard game that'll be taking place later today, 8:15 on CBS at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, will be the Tennessee Titans at 9-7, traveling to the New England Patriots at 12-4 and AFC East champions.
These teams have not met this year, but big connection on this one. Mike Vrabel, head coach for the Tennessee Titans, used to play for Bill Belichick from I think it was 2001 to 2008. But the big matchup in this game, I'm looking at the Titans offense versus the Patriots defense. The Titans offense, of course, you're looking at Derrick Henry, who led the NFL in rushing this year, won the rushing title, 1,540 yards, has 16 rushing touchdowns. He's been a backbone of this team on offense. A.J. Brown, of course, the rookie who's on the short list for Rookie of the Year, for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Ryan Tannehill. Look at the resurgence that Ryan Tannehill has had. He's 7-3 as a starter after taking over from Marcus Mariota earlier this year. He's got 2,700 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. He has been very, very efficient, and against that Patriots defense, they're definitely going to need that efficiency in that run game.
Yeah, but that Patriots defense is one that is absolutely amazing, and that's, I think, what's going to be the big story of this game, because this defense ranks first overall in total defense. They've been able to do it in every which way you can think of. They are first in interceptions forced with 25 on the season. They are 7th in sacks with 47. First in passing touchdowns allowed. They've only allowed 13 touchdowns on the season. That is less than 1 passing touchdown per game. This team is absolutely constructed to be just a defensive force that honestly we haven't seen since probably the 1985 Bears. There was a point in this season where they're looking at the statistics for the Patriots defense versus the best defenses of all time through fantasy football. 85 Bears were supposed to average, I think it was 262 points for that season. Patriots were on point to break 300. So just to show you how dominant this team is, first in yards, only allowing 275 this season. Second in allowing passing yards, only 180 a game. It's been absolutely amazing. Oh, yeah, first in points allowed, 14 points a game. That is absolutely amazing. So I feel that the Patriots have everything they need to be able to stop Ryan Tannehill, to be able to stop Derrick Henry. But I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting game. But who do you got winning this one?
This game being in Foxborough, it's very tough to win there, especially in the playoffs against Brady, against Belichick. The Pats defense has been playing at an astronomically high level.
Yes, it has.
I look at what teams have they played, and they have played some really atrocious offenses. And speaking of offenses, the Patriots offense is not great this year. They're not playing well. They look human.
Yeah, they do.
They don't have they don't have receivers. They can. I mean, Brady looks like he's maybe losing a step. He has the lowest completion percentage of his career. With that, coupled with how well the Titans play defense, and with that, they have the recipe to win games, to win playoff games when they matter most, with a solid run game, a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, and they play solid defense. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take the Titans to walk into Foxborough this afternoon, this evening, and they're going to come out with the win. And the big questions after the game is going to be, are Brady and Belichick retiring now?
Oh, my goodness. You kill me.
That's what I got.
All right. Well, for my prediction for this game, I'm taking the Patriots, because not only because of the amazing defense they have is going to be able to really stop Derrick Henry in this offense, but let's go ahead and compare the offenses. You want to go ahead and throw that out there. Tennessee Titans are averaging 25 points a game. New England's averaging 26.2. Let's look at the passing yards. You have Tennessee's averaging 223 a game, 224, 21st in the league. The Pats are averaging 247, 8th in the league. The one thing that helps Tennessee be able to get by is Derrick Henry. It's all about Derrick Henry, who is now has the ninth highest season total for rushing yards all time. Based upon this season, had 1,540, you said?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they do everything on the back of Derrick Henry. You stop that running game, this offense implodes, because while Ryan Tannehill has been able to have a good resurgence in Tennessee, it's all been predicated on the fact that they have a great running game that really helps pull guys into the box and allows Ryan Tannehill to just float it on over for all the yards and touchdowns he needs. That's how he's been able to be so successful. He's had his best passing completion percentage his entire career with Tennessee. I just don't see where Tennessee is going to be able to keep this defense, though, out of that backfield and keep Derrick Henry down. But hey, this is why we play the games, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But looking at our next game, we're going to shift to the games we have going on tomorrow, which will be the NFC side of things, starting with the Minnesota Vikings at 10-6 as a wild card, traveling down to the Superdome in New Orleans. They take on the 13-3 Saints, and this one's going to be a good one. It's going to be at 105 on Fox. God, this is the Minneapolis Miracle rematch.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is the only game of all these matchups in Wildcard Weekend that we won't see a potential upset.
Yes.
But I say that with a huge but.
Minneapolis Miracle.
I think this will be a high-scoring game. Because you've got to look at the match. I mean, all the matchups that are being talked about, at least when you do any, look at any sports writers and stuff like that, they're looking at New Orleans offense versus Minnesota's defense.
Yes.
I'm looking at it the opposite way. I'm looking at the Saints defense versus Kirk Cousins. You know how Kirk Cousins plays against really good teams on Monday Night Football and against other good teams and in the playoffs. He's had one playoff start in his entire career, and it was with the Redskins in 2015. This will only be his second start. Remember, the Minneapolis Miracle wasn't Kirk Cousins. It was Case Keenum.
Yep.
So Kirk Cousins, he's got this reputation he's got to shed of being a Bob Stoops type thing where he's a big game choker. I can't think of the term that I want to use, but that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
But to Kirk Cousins' credit, he's fifth in completion percentage, 69%. Fourth in passer rating, 107. 3,603 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions on the year. But that record against teams that finish 700 or better.
Oh, what is it? 0-15.
0-15, which is the worst percentage among all quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era. That is really horrible company.
Oh, that's painful.
You were the worst quarterback in the Super Bowl era against good teams. So it's going to be up to him. Can he step up to the challenge and do what he's been doing all season, which is playing at an MVP caliber level? I don't know if he can do it.
Oh, that sounds painful. I don't think he can either, because looking at the Saints defense, they're 13th in points, only allowing about 3 touchdowns a game. 11th in total yards, allowing 333, but they play really top-notch rushing defense, and that's the one thing that Minnesota is really going to want to try and predicate on, because this defense, I should say, is only allowing 91 rushing yards a game, and to be able to find success, you're going to want to make sure that Dalvin Cook or whoever else you're going to decide to put in is going to be able to get movement against this defense, and I just don't see it happening. And I think the Saints are going to be able to really use that to their advantage and be able to really hold down this team and really just not allow them to get into this game, because the big thing that we've noticed also with Kirk Cousins is just the inconsistency factor, especially when the pressure starts mounting, they start getting behind. The only exception I've ever seen was when they played Denver earlier this season. But I'm sorry, this is not the Denver Broncos. This is the New Orleans Saints, and this is a team that is for real. So at the end of the day, I just don't see Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings be able to overcome that, and I think the Saints are going to win this one handily.
I'm with you. I mean, the Saints finished 13-3. They're tied for the best record in the NFC, but yet they are the third seed based on tiebreakers. That 49ers game, that one play at the end of the game, literally was the difference between a first-round bye and now a wild card game. Just like, you think that some NFL games are not important? Just look at that game. Like,
absolutely.
Yes, it was a big matchup, but literally every game is so important.
Yes.
And being at 13-3 at home, the way the offense is playing, Drew Brees and Michael Thomas is playing at an also MVP level.
Oh, yeah. Broke so many records this year.
So many records that he's broken, and had such a stud season. With all of that coupled together, I think it'll be a very high-scoring game because both defenses give up a lot of points, a lot of yards. I think it'll be the Saints forcing enough turnovers from Kirk Cousins. He's going to end up not playing well. Saints win, move on in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Now we're going to move on to our last wild card game, one I know I'm holding near and dear to my heart, as the 11-5 Seattle Seahawks will travel to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia for a 4:40 NBC game tomorrow against the 9-7 Philadelphia Eagles, the NFC East champions. But this one has an interesting feel, because with the other games, you kind of have a feeling of what may or may not happen. But the biggest thing, these are the only two teams in the wild card round who met each other during the regular season, which was a Week 12 matchup in Philadelphia that the Seahawks ended up winning 17-9. Now, however, there's a huge difference between that game and what this game will be, only because at the end of the day, Philadelphia has now started to find itself as an offense. They've been able to learn which receivers they are able to rely on in certain passing situations. Carson Wentz has looked absolutely amazing. So it's going to be really interesting how this game will eventually play out. Because the big thing, all this is going to be is about this depleted offense versus this Seahawks defense. And already, Nelson Aguilar is going to be out with his knee injury. Zach Ertz and Lane Johnson are only questionable right now. Lane Johnson still dealing with concussion issues. Zach Ertz, the fractured ribs and the lacerated kidney, still might try and play. Totally amazing that he would even try. Miles Sanders, though, has been ruled that he will be playing in this game. However, he's still dealing with the swollen ankle, still having issues there, so probably going to be leaning on Boston Scott a lot. And you're still without Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Darren Sproles, all out on IR, not including Ronald Darby on the defensive side, who's also out on IR. They do get Avonte Maddox back, who's been now back for a couple weeks, been playing really good football. Obviously, we saw in the Dallas game what that defense was able to do to get those great pass breakups, but this offense is going to have to find something to do against this Seahawks defense. And
speaking of that Seahawks defense, of course, you're talking about with that Seahawks, the offense is what everyone's talking about, but not many people are talking about the defense. This defense is not as good as it once was. Everyone thinks about the Legion of Boom and all that, but this year they've allowed just under 25 points a game, which ranks 22nd. Not great. They've allowed almost 400 yards total, which is 26th. They've allowed 263 passing yards, 27th in the league. Over 117 rushing yards a game, 22nd. Not very good in the rankings of the NFL as far as how many yards they're allowing. But they do have Bobby Wagner, led the NFL with 159 total tackles.
Insane.
Absolutely absurd. Do you remember like 10 or 15 years ago when 100 tackles was like...
Oh, it was a thing.
The milestone?
Yeah, and then if you got 120, it's like, oh my goodness, you're an amazing defensive talent.
Brian Urlacher would hit 110, 120 tackles. Oh my God, he's the greatest linebacker of all time.
Oh yeah, get Ray Lewis, you got like 124, 125.
Bobby Wagner's the guy that nobody's talking about. He's got almost 100. He's almost got 200 tackles. Like, that's insane.
And who knows, by the end of the season, or by the end of this entire playoff, he might on the season. So we'll see.
The big key for this team on defense, they're getting back defensive back Quandre Diggs, safety Quandre Diggs.
Huge.
He's played 5 games with the Seahawks. Of course, he was made in that midseason trade with the Detroit Lions. In those 5 games, he's had 1 forced fumble, 3 passes defended, 3 interceptions, one of those going back for a touchdown.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
He's going to give a huge boost to that Seahawks defense to try to take out that depleted offense and all that they've done and still been able to manage to get to 9-7, win the division, and host a playoff game.
But the big thing is that the Eagles are going to be at home, and I think that's going to play into their favor, because if the Eagles were having to travel back on the road and go into that type of environment that Seattle is able to provide, I don't think Philadelphia would be able to hang. But they're in their home stadium in Lincoln Financial Field with that raucous Philly crowd, and now it's playoff time. You saw how excited they were at the end of the last game against the Giants when they locked up the NFC East. Wait until this crowd gets going in this game. And keep in mind, when they did play last time, it was only an 8-point game.
Yep.
So it's going to be a very interesting matchup. But
so I think you're going to take the Eagles here.
I think I am.
I'm pretty sure you're going to take the Eagles.
Maybe.
This game just has that feeling of, the Super Bowl run that you had? Doug Peterson just kind of just brought everyone together with all the adversity, and Carson Wentz went down. This has got that same feeling. Like, this to me, like, I'm in my heart of hearts, this has got that same feeling. Like, Doug Peterson's literally got the us against the world mentality these guys have. They're not I showed you that video.
I was about to say,
they're not the dogs. These aren't the dogs. These aren't the dogs of the Super Bowl run that they had. They're not the dogs, the underdogs. They're the Wolves.
Yeah.
They're the Wolves of Broad Street.
That's right.
That's great. I love that.
I love that.
Good Morning Football does some great segments.
We love you guys.
This is the closest spread of any game, 1.5. And Philly's the dog at 1.5 here. But with all the things, even with all the injuries and the Seattle's defense playing horrible, Seattle getting Marshawn Lynch back, and with how good of a season Russell Wilson's had, I'm going with the Eagles here in a huge upset. I think they can pull out just enough out of that team to get a wild card victory and then run into the buzzsaw of either Green Bay or San Francisco.
Right.
Those two teams are going to be so tough to beat. I'd rather see the Packers if I'm the Eagles.
Absolutely.
But I think they can muster up just enough. They can pull it together at home, and I think they can do it for one game and win in a huge upset.
Yeah, I think they absolutely could, and we'll definitely see how it plays out. I think the Eagles could end up pulling this one off, and it does have that kind of feel, because it's interesting. You look at what's happened to every other team, and you see what's happened to the Eagles. Yep. They've been absolutely depleted. Ended up with almost 11 people on IR, but now Doug Peterson has this team still going.
Yep.
Just watch out. Just watch
Absolutely.
out. But we still got to pay our light bill, so we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. But when we come back, we got a lot of NHL and NBA action to talk about before we dive into our good old sports history and give her a go. So make sure that you stay with us. We'll be right back.
The following support and sponsor Podcast City Network. City Limits Tap Room, sports bar in DeLand, Florida, has brew on tap, serve food, the grilled cheese is excellent. For upcoming events, check out City Limits Tap Room on Facebook.com/City Limits Tap Room. Atlantic Sounds has thousands of new and used vinyl records and CDs. If they don't have it, they can order it for you. Same location since 1982. For more updates on what's new, check out Atlantic Sounds on Facebook.com/Atlantic Sounds Vinyl. Sports Sanity Customs have worked with organizations from custom embroidering polo shirts to jerseys for your kids' baseball team. They do it all. Armed with state-of-the-art equipment and an in-house design team, they are equipped to take on your next project. Visit their website to learn more, sportsanitycustoms.com. Visit Sports Sanity Customs on Facebook.com/SportsSanityCustoms. 3Count Design offers a wide range of graphic design products, video, photography and other forms of media. Everything from t-shirt designs to websites. Visit Facebook.com/3CountDesign for more. Demo Blast Studios, an explosion of imagination. Original artwork, podcasts, video, apparel and more. Visit DemoBlastStudios.com. Visit Demoblast Studios on Facebook.com/Demoblast Studios, the best family entertainment pro wrestling show in the state of Kentucky. Kentucky's Own Wrestling brings quality family vintage wrestling to a town near you. Kentucky's Own Wrestling offers a ladies division in wrestling and a training school. Kentucky's Own Wrestling is the current longest running Southern promotion. Visit Facebook.com/Somerset Kentucky's Own Wrestling. All supporters and sponsors are brought to you by Podcast City Network.
And we are back here on Final Score with Chris and Craig. And now we're going to jump into some super exciting NHL news. Skipping MLB today. We really don't have much for that now that we're in the offseason. So we're going to jump right into some NHL stuff. And it's been very interesting what's been going on in the NHL. A lot of teams jockeying for position, a lot of things going on. And the standings have been taking an interesting hit from it.
Absolutely. I'm actually pulling them up right now because, internet, great and slow. And
it's Florida, so it's raining naturally.
Yeah, great stuff.
Gotta love it.
But yeah, I can tell you right now, the Red Wings still suck.
they're currently 10, 29, and 3 and have a score differential of -71.
Worst team in the NHL.
How do you feel about that?
Embarrassing.
But looking at some of these divisions, starting in the Eastern Conference and the Atlantic Division, the Boston Bruins are leading the whole shebang-a-bang by 8 points. Currently 24-7-11, 4-1-5 in their last 10. Current 2-game losing streak, but are still looking really good at home, 14-1-9.
Toronto, right behind them, number 2. They are playing so well now that they got rid of Mike Babcock. Who would have thought that the kind of coaching that he has, and he had success in Detroit and previous to that, but them firing him seems to be a blessing in disguise. They're sitting at second. Tampa Bay, watch out. The Lightning may have actually figured it out. They're third in the Atlantic right now. They're technically in the playoff race, 48 points. They've won 5 straight, 7-2-1 in their last 10. Bravo, Lightning.
Yeah.
Bravo.
Get it going, guys.
Welcome back.
But right behind them, you got the Florida Panthers, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Montreal Canadiens, all vying for position. Currently, the Panthers Sabres have won a game and are starting to look kind of decent. But looking at the Canadiens, 4-game losing streak, 4-6 in their last 10. But I don't know. We got to see what happens. Playing horrible at home, 8-9-3. Not looking good.
Yeah, and of course, the Senators and my Red Wings bringing up the rear in the Atlantic. Come on, Red Wings, at least beat the Senators. Come on. You got to beat the Senators here.
Got to do something.
Terrible. Moving on to the Metropolitan Division. Of course, the Capitals, who have been on an absolute tear through. They're running roughshod through the NHL, leading the league in 61 points. A whopping 61 points. They're leading the Metropolitan Division. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They have one of the higher score differentials in the league. Playing super well at home, 11-4-4.
We don't seem great. They're 17-5-1 on the road, and that's the thing. They find ways to get it done. But right behind them, you have the Islanders and the Pittsburgh Penguins, both tied with 53 points. Both teams on losing streaks of 1 game, but still. Islanders 5-4-1 in their last 10. The Penguins 7-2-1 in their last 10. Both teams trying to play good and jockeying for position.
And right behind them, the Hurricanes and your Philadelphia Flyers sitting right there. Blue Jackets, Rangers, Devils, all bringing up the rear here. Flyers are kind of falling a little bit. They were about 3 or 4, and now they're kind of falling down.
Yeah,
they're down at 5.
Yeah, they're 5-5 in their last 10. Have lost 2 straight. Haven't been looking all that great. We're still getting it done at home though. 13-2-4, which is one of the better home marks in the league. But 9-12-1 on the road, not looking all that good. So hopefully the Flyers can right the ship and get it going again.
Yep, Columbus Blue Jackets 7-0-3 in their last 10. They're kind of big. They had that surprise playoff run last year. Maybe they got another one in them. It looks like they're on a roll right now. See if they can get themselves in playoff position.
Yeah, they definitely might. We'll definitely see how a lot of that will work out. But still, the Devils, who were looking to try and be a team that was going to be on the up and up, currently 6-3-1 in their last 10 and on a 3-game winning streak, but still 15-19-6. Not looking all that great. You
got to figure out what you want to do if you're the Devils in that organization. You had such high hopes coming into the year, and then all comes off the rails, talking about trading Taylor Hall. There's so many things. It's just so much uncertainty in that organization right now. They got to figure out what direction they want this franchise to go in.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big thing. Once they figure it out, I'm sure they're going to be able to try and get something going. But just breaking news, Lane Johnson has been ruled out for today's game against the Seahawks. So definitely a blow to that Eagles offense we were talking about just a little bit ago.
I think it was kind of expected that he might be sitting out though too, because he's got that nagging injury he's been dealing with for quite a while, and it's definitely gonna be a blow, especially with you're across to Javion Clowney in that defensive line. But we'll see. They've been doing it all year. We'll see if they can do it one more time.
Definitely will. But looking at the NHL Western Conference, starting with the Central Division, our NHL Stanley Cup defending champions, St. Louis Blues, currently leading the division with 58 points, which is third best in the entire league. 26-10-6, 8-2-0 in their last 10, but are currently on a 2-game losing streak.
Avalanche, Stars, and Jets are all right behind them. Avalanche and Stars both sitting at 52 points, tied for second in the Central. Of course, Avalanche, we know they were going to try to take a step forward, having all that young talent that made that playoff run last year, trying to keep that momentum rolling. Stars on a 4-game win streak.
Looking great.
And looking pretty good in their last 10, 6-3-1, and really trying to stay close. You just got to stay within shot, within striking
definitely.
distance of the Avalanche and the Blues.
Like I said, with Winnipeg's in there only 47 points, 3-6-1 in their last 10. Doing about just as good as the rest of this division, with the Minnesota Wild, Nashville Predators, and the Chicago Blackhawks all sitting there in the low 40s for points, but all of them are on losing streaks, all of them not looking good. The Blackhawks the only one with any kind of a bright spot this far, down to a currently 6-4-0 in their last 10, but you're 18-18-6, bro. You ain't going to be doing that good.
Good Lord, did I go out on a limb and just fall flat on my flat on my face?
It's a fad to fall flat on your face, right?
Yeah, I expected more out of the Nashville Predators this year. I seriously did. With the playoff run they had last year, and the expectations coming in this season,
a lot
this
higher.
is a very disappointing season for the Nashville Predators. So maybe they can try to turn it around. I mean, the Blues did it last year. They were at the bottom of their conference, bottom of the division,
Complete bottom.
About this time last year, and they turned it around and turned into Stanley Cup champs. Let's see what they can do. See if Nashville can do the same.
Yeah, you never know. We'll see what happens. But looking at the Pacific Division, you have the Vegas Golden Knights leading with 52 points, with the Arizona Coyotes right behind them with 50 points. Both teams having a good mark right now on winning streaks. The Golden Knights with 3 games, Coyotes with 2. Knights 7-2-1 in their last 10, looking really strong as a front runner in this Pacific Division.
One of the hottest teams in the NHL, right behind them, the Vancouver Canucks, 48 points, 22-15-4. They are 13-5-3 at home. They're on a 6-game win streak and 7-3 in their last 10. They're really making a push to make the playoffs in that really tough Pacific Division.
And right behind them in a tie, the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames with 47 points, both 21-17-5. Both teams, though, kind of going in different directions. Calgary just got a win. Oilers just took a loss. So we'll see how they go going forward.
Edmonton's really been struggling since they had that really hot start to begin the year, and they need to try to refine it, get healthy, and you just got to play better, especially at home.
Absolutely.
10-8-3 is not really going to get it done at home, and so from that, you really gotta try to turn it around.
Absolutely. But right behind them, the San Jose Sharks, the LA Kings, and the Anaheim Ducks rounding out this entire division. Honestly, all 3 of these teams were looking to be teams that might be able to start vying for a Stanley Cup again, but all of them falling flat on their faces. Probably the most disappointing, I feel like, would be San Jose. Thought there was going to be a lot more going on. Sitting there with a negative 29 score differential, worst in this division.
Yeah, I think the Kings are the only team that was like, okay, maybe they'll be at the bottom. But I know the Ducks were talking about pushing for the playoffs. Of course, the San Jose Sharks made that historic run last year. Yep. I think, didn't you pick to watch out for the Ducks?
I
think we both kind of fell flat on some of those picks.
We definitely fell flat, but it's okay, You never said this is the perfect science, So.
Right, yeah. It's all opinion-based, whatever.
Yeah, it definitely is. But looking at it, though, that is our standings. Now we're going to take a look at the NHL.com 3 stars of the week. A lot of good ones on here.
And this last 3 stars of the week was the week ending the 29th, so this last Sunday. The next one is going to get released this coming Monday on the 6th. They get released every single Monday. First star goes to our own Tampa Bay Lightning defenseman.
That's right.
Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman had 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points in 3 games. They were 3-0 in those games. He recorded back-to-back multi-point games. No other Lightning defenseman has posted back-to-back 3-point showings. And he's third in scoring among defensemen with 9 goals, 28 assists, and 37 points, all in 35 games. He's averaging a point a game, which is pretty good, especially for a defenseman.
Absolutely.
Averaging over a point a game, you're going to get that kind of production out of that guy on that line. So part of the real key of why this team is making a push and finally waking up from their slumber.
Absolutely. Our second star goes to St. Louis Blues goaltender Jordan Binnington, who had a 3-0 record during this time, who was only allowing 1.96 goals against average and a .929 save percentage to help extend the St. Louis Blues and its season-high winning streak to 8 games. He also shares the NHL lead with 19 wins in 2019 and 2020, with a 19-6-4 mark in the 29 games that he has played in, including his active 6-game winning streak in the games he's played in. He also ranks among the top 10 in goals against average, which he's 4th with a 2.39, and save percentage, which is at .921, best for 6th in the league among goaltenders with at least 20 appearances, and he's set to close the 2019 calendar year as a league leader in regular season wins with 43, the most ever in a calendar year by a Blues goaltender, besting Mike Lewitt's mark of 40 set back in 1980.
And the third star, John Tavares, the center from Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been a huge force in kind of having that little resurgence, like we said earlier, with the firing of Mike Babcock. But he's our third star of last week, ranked second in the NHL with 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points in 3 games. They went 2-0-1 in that span. He started the week by factoring on each of Toronto's first 3 goals in an 8-6 win against the Carolina Hurricanes on December 23rd, collecting all 3 points, 1 goal, 2 assists for those 3 points within the first 5 minutes of the game. That's a franchise record for the fastest 3 points to start a game. And he's also had 3 points in a regular season game 58 times. Just to put that in perspective, only 6 players have had such performances since 2009-2010.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
This last decade.
Yes. Absolutely
6 players.
amazing.
That's it.
Absolutely
That's
amazing.
it.
Hats off to our 3 stars of the week from NHL.com. Absolutely amazing what they've been able to do. But now we're going to move on a little bit of NBA news, and we're going to take a look in at our local Orlando Magic, who are still right there trying to stay in the playoff hunt with the 8th seed, but are definitely having some up and down days, it seems like, but have been a lot more good than bad recently. But
absolutely. On Monday, December 30th, they played against the Atlanta Hawks. They lost this game, which is really shocking and surprising to a lot of, especially Orlando Magic fans. Hawks were the worst team in the NBA, but that game broke a 10-game skid for the Atlanta Hawks, but they did it with no Trae Young, who's been having that ankle injury lately. He has been back in the lineup since, but they did it with no Trae Young, which is probably the biggest surprise here.
Yeah, absolutely is. When you look at the starters, Nikola Vucevic ended up having 27 points, which led the team in 6 rebounds. Evan Fournier even had 22 points, but had 4 costly turnovers. And even Markelle Fultz got in there with 3 points, 5 assists, 7 rebounds, and a turnover, but it just wasn't enough. DJ Augustine coming off the bench had a decent game with 17 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, but 3 turnovers of his own as well. And the offense just struggled overall and only scored 36 second half points after scoring 36 in the second quarter alone. So definitely a very dismal game against Atlanta, and that's a game you got to win. Yeah,
you got to win these types of games. I mean, and they've had a really good record against sub 500 teams, which is a great stat for the Magic. Is you got to play well against those bad teams. But the one thing I like about what they're doing is they're bringing DJ Augustin off the bench, who is that guy that can play against the second unit. He's getting a little bit older. Could he start? Absolutely. But he's a little undersized at that point guard position. He's always been that way. So trying to put him in at the second unit gives you a really big spark on the bench. You listed his stat line for that game. But Markelle Fultz, these are the kind of games you're going to get out of him. Is you're going to get the really good games where he has the 18 points, 6 assists, double doubles, little to no turnovers. Some games maybe a triple double, but these kind of games, the 3 points, 5 assists, 7 rebounds, those are the games you're also going to get from him because of how inconsistent he is. The one thing I do say about a bright spot here about Fultz, he's not turning the ball over. 1 turnover in that game that you mentioned, and that's going to be a big key for them for the rest of the season. Don't turn the ball over, and try to have more good games than not.
Well, speaking of good games, very next game they had on New Year's Day at the Washington Wizards. They ended up taking this one 122-101 and entered the game with the NBA's worst offense and were able to throw up 122. And the win snapped a 4-game road losing streak for the Magic. So definitely a great win by them.
Absolutely. Looking at starting lineups, Vucevic had a double-double, 20 and 12, 20 points, 12 rebounds. Fournier, another 18-point outing, 4 rebounds, but again, 4 turnovers. That ugly turnover-prone trait that he has turned its ugly head.
Yeah, that's 8 in 2 games.
Yeah, and Markelle Fultz, 16 points, 8 assists, 4 rebounds. Again, only 1 turnover. That's like the Jekyll and Hyde about Markelle Fultz, like I just mentioned. But off the bench, DJ Augustine, 25 points, led the team, 9 assists, 1 turnover. Terrence Ross got hot off the bench, 15 points.
Absolutely, playing great. And then they followed up with another great win just yesterday against the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, we know, has been on a great tear this year with Jimmy Butler and a lot of the great players they have, but they ended up running into a buzzsaw late against the Orlando Magic because the Magic were able to hold Miami to only 6 points in the fourth quarter after the Heat had scored 35 points in the third quarter alone. The Magic had led 84-79 going into the fourth quarter. So just to give you a perspective of how shooting went for the Heat, they were 3 of 19 on field goal shooting and 0-10 from three-point range in the fourth quarter. So absolutely fell apart because the Magic had a good chance, or the Heat, had a good chance to be able to come back in this game and possibly take this one over from the Magic because the Magic have been known to crumble late in games, but the Magic clamped down and they were able to take this one hard.
And when the Orlando Magic can get a lead, they're better for it because you know the solid defense they play, but that offense, they got to find people to consistently score. But when you're playing as good of a defense as they played last night against the Heat, you can win games against teams like this, which is really promising, especially when you're trying to push for that playoff spot, that 7-8 seed, or trying to get maybe contending for that division. So looking at the starting lineups and what their stat lines were, Nick Vucevic, another double-double, second one this week, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists, almost a triple-double there. Aaron Gordon returning from injury. He's got that Achilles injury that's kind of bothering him lately.
Oh, yes.
But he had 16 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Fournier, 15 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, only 1 turnover, which is really good.
Yeah, that was really big for him.
Yeah, really big for him, especially those back-to-back games. Markelle Fultz, another 6 points, 3 assists, 1 rebound, 6 steals from him, only 2 turnovers. So great game, all-around game by the starters there.
Yeah, but the big news for this game was coming off the bench. Terrence Ross came out and threw up 25 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 steals to help lead this team in scoring. To be able to take this one, especially late, DJ Augustine also had 9 points, 7 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, but he also had 3 turnovers, so something kind of for him to work on. But the big news of this, the Magic are now 1-0 against the Heat this season. They still have 3 more meetings, but this is a great way to start the season rivalry.
Absolutely, and then not only rivalry, this is the team that you're really gunning for in that division. I mean, if you want to get a good playoff seed, you were talking about how you thought the Orlando Magic could take over this division, and this is how you got to do it.
Yes.
You have to go at least 3 out of 4 against the teams like Miami, but you can't lose to teams like Atlanta.
Yes.
Some other interesting, really quick stat that they out of this game, Miami only shot 7 of 37 from 3. That is under 20%. That's 18%. They forced 18 turnovers, which is huge. Only allowed 16 assists. 16 assists. Let me get my English right. I'm having English problems over here today.
It's spreading.
But field goal percentage, they held them under 40%, 30 of 80. All these are very promising. Like I said, that defense, we know what they can do, but it's the offensive side of the ball that the Magic really need to focus on and fine-tune if they want to keep in that playoff race and compete for the division.
Absolutely. They're going to be able to try and figure that out. But looking at some of our other NBA news, we're going to take a quick look at all of the standings because we actually have not updated these in a little while. So definitely going to be interesting looking at this. So looking at the Eastern Conference first, the Milwaukee Bucks lead the entire Eastern Conference by a 5-game lead, currently 31-5, 8-2 in their last 10 on a 4-game winning streak. But the biggest thing I look at here is their score differential, which leads the league, and they're winning games by a 12.9 differential, which is huge in the NBA.
They've been on an absolute tear. I mean, looking at their month of December, they only had 2 losses in the whole month.
That's crazy.
2 losses in the whole month of December, and those 2 teams were at home against the Mavericks, who's been a surprisingly very good team in the West, and at Philadelphia, who's also in that playoff race. So, I mean, they've been on a tear. They're one of the best teams in the NBA. But yeah, they're definitely off to a hot start. Right behind them, the Celtics, Boston Celtics, 24-8, 5 games behind that number 1 seed. Dominant at home, 14-2. They're on a 2-game win streak. They've won 7 of their last 10 games, and recently just coming off of wins against the Hawks and Hornets. So a little bit of a padding of your schedule right now because you got Bulls, Wizards, Spurs coming up. But yeah, the top 2 teams right there. That's the class of the Eastern Conference.
So right behind them, you got the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors, both jockeying for position within 2 games of each other. Both teams suffering 1-game losing streaks, but still playing good. 7-3 in their last 10 for the Heat, 6-4 in their last 10 for the Raptors. Both still sitting right there, solid at number 3 and number 4.
And number 5 and 6, the Pacers and the Sixers. Pacers, another quiet season, quietly playing well, being the second best team in that division, in the Central Division. The Philadelphia 76ers right behind them. I'm sure they're not in the spot that they wanted to be in. They were projected by all the talking heads, all the experts, to be one of the top teams in the East, to make the NBA Finals. But of course, we're smarter than that.
Yes,
I've been banging the table and pounding my fist on the table saying that the Philadelphia 76ers are not that good. Okay? They just lost last night at the Rockets by 10 points. They've had losses. That's a 4-game losing streak for them. They've lost against the Pacers, Heat, and Magic, all playoff teams. They beat the Bucks. But I mean, earlier this year, they've also lost twice to the Heat. They lost to the Nets. They lost to the Mavericks. You get the point. Is that they're not that good. On paper, they look good defensively, but they're also having issues, just like the Magic are, of being able to score consistently. And you got Joel Embiid, inconsistent, not always healthy. There's a lot of issues on this team, which is why I don't really like them to make a push and deep run in the playoffs.
And right behind them in 7 and 8, we got the Brooklyn Nets and our Orlando Magic, both sitting with 16 wins. The Nets, though, on a 4-game losing streak, 3-7 in their last 10, looking absolutely dismal. And the Orlando Magic, though, 2-game winning streak, starting to get things going, still trying to keep that 2-game lead they currently have over our first team on the outside looking in, are 5-5 in their last 10.
And on that outside looking in, the surprising Charlotte Hornets sitting right there with 2 games back. Bulls and Pistons actually sitting down there. Obviously the Pistons, I could go on a rant about them. They're a huge train wreck this year. But first-round draft pick Sekou Doumbouya made his first start the other night and posted a double-double, one of the first rookies in Pistons history to have a double-double in his first start. So he's in very small company with that, so a lot of promising there. Last teams, Cavs, Wizards, Knicks all have 10 wins, and the Hawks, worst team in the NBA, 7 wins.
Yeah, and 1-9 in their last 10, and still somehow beat the Magic. But looking at the Western Conference, you got the LA Lakers still leading this entire conference, currently 28-7, 6-4 in the last 10 on a 4-game winning streak, and have the second best score differential in the conference at 7.4. I've been able really to get it done. Biggest thing I see here, though, 20-4 against the Western Conference, only team with 20 wins against their own conference. So it's definitely very interesting to see Bucks and Lakers both able to have that kind of clip.
Absolutely, and the Lakers, playing so well this year. I mean, they look really good. They're making the rest of the West look somewhat pedestrian, which how strong the West has been the last few years. That's saying a lot.
What's strange about it, though, is that they had like a random 4-game losing streak in there where they lost to the Pacers on the road, the Bucks on the road, the Nuggets at home, and then the Clippers at home, and they got back on a winning streak again. So I feel we're going to see that every now and then, maybe just little blips where they're either going to be doing load management or trying to keep certain guys out. Obviously, Anthony Davis has already had a couple little issues this year, so it's something definitely to watch out for. But still, I don't think when you have all those guys on the court with LeBron and with AD, and even when you start factoring in guys like Dwight Howard and whatnot, this is going to be a team that's going to be the class of the Western Conference.
Absolutely. And number 2 and 3 right behind them, Denver Nuggets and the other LA team, the LA Clippers, both sitting 3.5 games back of that top spot. Both teams playing decently well in their last 10. Denver's 8-2. The Clippers are 6-4. And Denver, Michael Porter Jr. has really turned it on.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's had some great games as of late. So that's really promising because when you draft him, that's what you're expecting. He had that injury that he's been worried, kind of messing with his back and all that kind of stuff, where he didn't really play much in college, didn't really play much his first year. So him being able to look as healthy as he is and be able to do what he can do right now, very promising. It looks like a steal from that draft class right now for Denver Nuggets.
Absolutely. Right behind them, behind the Nuggets and Clippers, you have the Rockets, Mavs, and the Utah Jazz all sitting there jockeying for position. All teams on winning streaks, including the Utah Jazz, who are currently on a 4-game winning streak and are 9-1 in their last 10. The Utah Jazz looking absolutely amazing right now compared to the rest of the conference. The only team that has a winning streak as long as theirs in their conference is the LA Lakers. So
surprise.
Yeah, definitely, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. So definitely very interesting to kind of see how this has been shaping up for the Utah Jazz. Utah looked kind of dismal to start off with, and then really got it going these past 10 to 12 games. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they do going forward. Big thing for them, 13-3 at home.
Absolutely. Rounding out the rest of the Western Conference playoff picture, Oklahoma City Thunder, surprising 19-15.
Yes.
8-2 in their last 10 on a 4-game win streak. And the San Antonio Spurs still hanging in there. Still hanging in there at the 8 seed. They're not willing to give up their playoff positioning. But those teams, really the big thing for the Spurs, they're playing really bad on the road. They're 4-10 this season on the road. Mm-hmm. Their score differentials a negative 1.7, 5-5 in their last 10. So, I mean, they're still trying to hang in there, but they've got a long way to go to rebuild back to what they were this last decade.
Absolutely. We're looking at the outside looking in. You got the Portland Trail Blazers, the Phoenix Suns, and the Minnesota Timberwolves all sitting within 13 to 14 games of that spot, or the top spot, I should say, all with a current 1-game winning streak. All of them kind of dismal, though, in their last 10. Blazers 5-5, and the Suns and Timberwolves each 3-7. All these teams trying to get something going, but all of them are not playing well, whether it be at home or on the road. Phoenix boarding a 7-12 record at home, just not looking good. So a lot of these teams are really trying to jog. Phoenix Suns obviously had their really hot streak to start the season, but obviously we're not able to keep that sustained, as now they are 14-21. So definitely kind of dismal for all three of these teams, one of which was a playoff team last year. So definitely see how it goes going forward.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at the rest of this conference, I mean, you got you already mentioned Blazers, Suns, Timberwolves. I mean, Kings, Grizzlies, Pelicans, Warriors. The Warriors are really just struggling.
But they're not the worst team in the NBA anymore.
But they're not. That belongs to the Atlanta Hawks, who just beat the Orlando Magic. But the Warriors, we've been talking about this every segment all season for the NBA. I mean, you're in a transition. You're waiting for Curry to get back. You're waiting for Klay Thompson to get back. Yep. You're trying to find production out of Draymond Green and all these young guys. You're trying to find the next wave of guys that can put you back into that stratosphere that you were in. I mean, they had a great run. You know, hopefully for them, for their fan base, this is a blip in the road, a blip on the radar, instead of being a trend moving forward for that franchise.
Oh, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see how a lot of it shakes out. I think once Golden State's able to get back to the point where they have a lot of their players back, you're going to see this be a completely different team. But right now, they're just treading water, trying to make it through the season. Obviously, they had the mass exodus of players and movements that they had in the offseason. So I feel some of this was expected, especially by the front office and the coaching staff. So we'll definitely see how a lot of it will shape out, especially, like you said, when they get Steph Curry back, when they get Klay Thompson back, when they start getting back to pieces that really make this team the team that it is. So we'll definitely see how it works out going forward. But right now that we've covered a little bit of our standings, we're going to go ahead and switch gears to the NBA.com Players of the Week, ending for December 30th. What do we got?
So looking at the Players of the Week, in the East, Jaylen Brown, the forward for the Boston Celtics, and in the West, Brandon Ingram, forward for the New Orleans Pelicans. The two different teams are in two different places in the standings, but but the production is kind of the same. I mean, you're looking at Jaylen Brown and what he's done in 3 games up until December 30th. They had wins against the Raptors, they had against the Cavaliers, and then lost a second game against the Raptors. But in that game against the Cavaliers, Jaylen Brown had a career-high 34 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Had another 30-point game, the first game against the Raptors, and really kind of coming into his own as a talent on that team in that starting lineup.
Yeah, and in the West, Brandon Ingram, forward for the New Orleans Pelicans, been playing out of his mind. Been really solid with the absence of Zion Williamson this entire season. Been able to go in against the Trailblazers, had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals at the start of the week, and then just kept it rolling and doubled up with a 31 point, 7 rebound, 2 assists, 2 steal, 1 block game, win against the Denver Nuggets, and then turned around and did it again against the Indiana Pacers, having 24 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and then rounded out the week with a huge win against the Houston Rockets, getting 27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block to really lead this team and push them to 4-0 during that time.
Yeah, the NBA.com also released the Players of the Month for December 2019. In the East, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And in the West, what's that?
I was going to say, that's no surprise.
Yeah, no surprise there. And in the West, also no surprise, James Harden.
Yeah, both guys have been playing absolutely out of their mind. Giannis has been just on a tear for the Milwaukee Bucks so far this season and really showing that they're not being held down this year.
Yeah, and his stat line over the month of December, 29.3 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists. The team went 13-2 in that span in the month of December. And James Harden in the West, 37 points per game, just under 7 assists a game, and 5.5 rebounds. The Rockets went 10-5 in December. Next week, we're going to cover the rookies of the month in December. So we'll cover those next week and give you some more awesome NBA news. We'll talk about NBA All-Star Weekend is literally next month. It's right around the corner yet again. I remember when we first started this show last year, we were talking about Charlotte.
Man, we were. But now we get to move forward onto another one because we're Final Score, and we've stayed around that long. So at the end of the day, though, definitely make sure you check back next week for episode 43 of Final Score, when we bring a lot of that information to you, including, like we said, the rookies of the month, and hopefully maybe a little bit of an all-star preview. I know they had already, I think, started announcing coaches, I believe, or however they were going to play it out. Who knows? We'll definitely have more on it next week. We'll worry about it then, because right now we can't go forward. We got to go backwards, because right now it's time for This Week in Sports History. It's a good one.
I'll kick it off. January 4th, 1984, Adrian Dantley ties Wilt Chamberlain's NBA record for most free throws made in a game by converting 28 of 29 free throws in Utah's 116-111 win over Houston in Las Vegas.
Man, January 5th, 2019. That's right, just 1 year ago. Golden State and the Sacramento Kings combined for 41 three-pointers in the Warriors' 127-123 win, which set a new NBA record for threes in a game. Let me English. Now I got to catching your English problem.
Jeez, man.
Steph
I caught
Curry,
yours to start. What are you talking about?
You passed it back. Steph Curry hit 10 triples while Buddy Hield led the Kings with 8. Justin Jackson added in 5 himself. Great game.
We're taking it way back for this next one.
Oh,
I'm talking way back.
I think this is the furthest back we've ever gone.
This is the furthest back we've ever gone. January 6th, 1681.
That's right.
1681.
350 years.
That's not even fathomable to think about that far back. But the first recorded boxing match happened.
Yes.
And it was the Duke of Albemarle. Screw this up.
Albemarle's.
Albemarle's?
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes.
The Duke of Albemarle's butler versus his butcher.
I have a feeling the butcher won.
I have a feeling the butcher won too.
Unless you have one of those butlers that's like a super jack guy you just keep around for those reasons.
Unless the butler's like the younger Alfred Pennyworth that the DC universe has been kind of pushing the last
true.
few. I mean, the dude was apparently like an English Navy SEAL kind of thing. Like, I mean,
you never know. You never know. January 8th, 1945, University of Kentucky Wildcats men's basketball team set a new NCAA record by holding Arkansas State to 6 points in a 75-6 win.
They still, I think they were still using peach baskets back then.
Probably.
I mean, you're looking at Adolph Rupp there. Basically.
Yes.
But the next one, January 8th, 1993, Michael Jordan's game-high 35 points leads Chicago to a 120-95 win over Milwaukee. Gives him exactly 20,000 points in his 620th game of the NBA career. It's the second fastest to reach that milestone after none other than Wilt Chamberlain, who did it in 499 games.
Absolutely amazing. January 8th, 2012, the 3-16 game, which was the AFC wildcard playoff game between the underdog Denver Broncos and the heavily favored Pittsburgh Steelers, when Tim Tebow connected with Demaryius Thomas on an 80-yard touchdown pass on the first play from scrimmage in overtime against the number 1 ranked defense that year in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and took the win 29-23.
I remember that game.
I do too. I watched it live.
Yeah, I did too. That was insane. I mean, you're looking, the Tim Tebow train was rolling, man. It was rolling at that time. The next game we're talking about, January 9th, 1903, Frank Farrell and Bill Devery purchased the American League's Baltimore franchise for a mere $18,000 and move it to New York City. They were later renamed the New York Yankees, and the rest is history.
And the rest is history. January 10th, 1982, we had the NFC Championship game from Candlestick Park in San Francisco. Why is this game important? Because this was the catch, the iconic moment in NFL history when Dwight Clark made the fingertip catch for a touchdown from Joe Montana with 58 seconds remaining, as San Francisco ended up downing the Dallas Cowboys 28-7 and ended up going on to win the Super Bowl.
Dang. Well, speaking of the Cowboys, that's going to be the first topic of our Give or Go segment.
That's right.
To round out the show here. So I'm going to, since you love the Cowboys so much, I'm going to toss this one to you. I'm going to toss the first one to you. Jason Garrett has been finally let go by the Dallas Cowboys after 9.5 seasons as a head coach.
Now, I'm going to give on this just because there's still apparently reports where it's not official yet right now. That's garbage. He's fired. He's gone. Let's stop playing this little charade, because he's 85-67 in his tenure as head coach, with 2-3 in the playoffs, also dismal. Only had 4 winning seasons in 14, 16, 17, and 18. Oh, but only 3 of those had 10 or more wins. That was 14, 16, and 18. So looking at this whole situation, he has not been able to find the kind of success they are hoping for with having, over his tenure, one of the best offensive lines, some of the best running backs. You've had not only Tony Romo, who honestly was statistically not that bad of a quarterback, and Dak Prescott, who's also getting the job done. And like you like to mention all the time, has statistically been better than Carson Wentz in a lot of areas. And you still have guys like Amari Cooper running up the sideline, Michael Gallup, who's been able to show he's a great player. Great defenses with Von Erich and all these great players, and you still can't get the job done. This is why you're out of a job. This is why you're probably going to end up in New York coaching the Giants to another dismal franchise run for the next 8 to 10 years, and then you're probably going to get fired and hopefully never coach again. Is that too harsh?
No, it's pretty accurate, actually.
I think it's pretty accurate. Enjoy that unemployment line, brother.
But I think the more telling thing here is not the fact that Jason Garrett's been there for 9.5 years. It's the fact that Jerry Jones won't go out and get him a Jimmy Johnson because he likes his yes man. And what is Jason Garrett? He is a yes man.
And he loves his ass kissed.
And Jerry loves getting his ass kissed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's
like Vince McMahon.
I mean, that's a big reason. Weird. What do they have in common?
Hey.
Don't need to go down that rabbit hole right now.
Yeah, let's not go down that one.
But, I mean, Jason Garrett is the yes man he's the John Laurinaitis in this scenario here.
But the big question, though, who becomes the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys? Because you got to keep in mind, there's a lot of names being floated around, like Lincoln Riley and Urban Meyer. Even Mike McCarthy apparently is supposed to be taking an interview sometime soon. But the big thing I see is that Jerry's still going to want a guy who's going to be an ass-kissing yes man.
And that's the wild card, which Urban Meyer wouldn't do it.
No, I don't think he will.
Urban Meyer wouldn't do it. Who else? Oh, you're talking about Lincoln Riley? He might, but I don't know if he'd want to leave Oklahoma. They would be willing to pay him out the ass, like more than they ever paid Bob Stoops. And that's saying something.
That's really saying something.
I mean, they want to keep that. They want to keep that opportunity there for him. So I don't think either of those guys are possible. But I couldn't tell you in real, honest opinion who I think could do it, because Jerry Jones is the wild card. Mm-hmm. He likes his yes men.
He does so much.
Who does he bring in? Maybe he brings in a guy that maybe coached previously at Dallas.
How about bringing Charlie Weiss? I'd like to see that experiment.
Yikes! I think
4 more NFC East titles.
I think it's a really long shot, but I wouldn't be surprised to see offensive coordinator Kellen Moore's name in there, because he's already in the system. You see what he does with that offense. Jerry Jones is going to make the excuse that he's going to push this offense to another level, which is the same excuse he gave when he hired Jason Garrett. So, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to see that.
No, it wouldn't. But I think I prefer that one, because I'm sure that would guarantee some more Philadelphia Eagle playoff runs and NFC East titles.
Perhaps.
So, looking at our next topic that I'm going to throw to you, Carolina Panthers running back Christian McCaffrey has been selected twice to the AP All-Pro team as a running back and a flex player. Give her a go.
I mean, give for a minute just because of the fact of what he was able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
All pro as a running back and as a flex. I think it's hilarious that the NFL has honored the flex position as an actual position.
Yes.
Thank you, fantasy football.
Yes.
But he had over 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards in 2019. 1,387 rushing, 1,005 receiving. And mentioned that flex position added in 2016 to reward players who best exemplify the modern era. But we actually talked about, yesterday, we were talking at work, the only other players to do this, now there's been 3 of them. Christian McCaffrey is one. The second is Marshall Faulk. I don't forget what year, but it's right around probably 2001-2 era. And the third, you said, was Roger Craig from the 80s.
Yes, he got drafted in the early 80s and ended up playing for 3 teams.
But most notably for the 49ers,
yes, most
running
notably.
back for the 49ers. But all 3 were running backs, and all 3 were multiple position all pros at running back and receiver for the latter 2, because before they didn't have the flex position. But that's how small of a company that he's in with this, what he just did.
And look what he did with the kind of team he was on. That's
5-11 team.
Yeah, really garbage 5-11 team where he literally was the only bright spot of the entire team with all the Cam Newton distractions, with Ron Rivera getting fired, and he's still able to do this. Absolutely amazing.
Every week, every team knew, circle this position.
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey is the guy they're running our offense through. That's the guy that we need to stop, and nobody could do it.
Nobody could. But it still just wasn't enough to be able to get them to a better season. So definitely going to be interesting to see how things are going to play out going forward.
Absolutely. Next one to you, give or go. The Miami Heat will retire Dwayne Wade's jersey during a February 22nd matchup versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm going to give on this one just briefly, just because Dwayne Wade is an amazing player who I feel has been the face of the NBA at times in his career and was able to do things a lot of people just flat out can't. He played in 1,054 games, averaging 22 points, 4.7 rebounds, 5.4 assists, and had a career average of 48% field goal percentage. Now, looking at that, say for a game, like, oh, okay, that's good. But this is his career. To keep those kind of sustained numbers is absolutely amazing. During his 17 NBA seasons that he had, 15 were with the Heat, 1 with the Bulls, and kind of a half season with the Cavs, and then he ended up back in Miami anyways. But he ends as the all-time leading scorer and assist leader for the Miami Heat, which is huge because Miami Heat are a very tight-knit franchise. They are very loyal. They are very dedicated to what they do, and they do not accept crap. They will try and take the best they can and try and make sure that they are becoming so ingrained in everything they do. And that's what's been great because Dwayne Wade ended up being that guy. Won 3 NBA titles with the Heat in 06, 2012, and 2013. He was the NBA Finals MVP in 2006 when they won their title against the Dallas Mavs when he was partnering with Shaquille O'Neal. He was the NBA scoring champion in 2009, a 13-time NBA All-Star, 8-time All-NBA, 2 times first team, 3 times second and third team. Absolutely amazing career. I'm so happy for him that they are finally doing this and they're going to hang the number 3 up in the rafters. And I say this as a Magic fan because that's our biggest rival, but I have the utmost respect for Dwayne Wade and what he's done for this sport.
Yeah, he's had such a great career. I mean, he's one of the more iconic players of that decade. And obviously he is the face of the Miami Heat franchise.
Absolutely.
And yeah, this is well-received honor. He's also probably going to be in the Hall of Fame at some point.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, it's a great honor. Anytime you can retire a jersey or get your jersey retired, I'd say you had a pretty good career.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd say you had a pretty good career.
I'd say so. So our last give or go, the NFL's Rookie of the Year finalists have been named. Give or go.
Oh, we got to give on this one.
No, let's do it.
We got to give on this one because I have to really kind of dump on the NFL here.
Ooh, let's do it.
NFL Rookie of the Year finalists are named. They only list 5. And the names on this list are deserving. Mm-hmm. Absolutely deserving. Defensive end Nick Bosa from the 49ers. Running back Josh Jacobs from the Raiders.
Yes.
Quarterback Kyler Murray, of course, number 1 pick Kyler Murray of the Cardinals. A.J. Brown, wide receiver from the Titans. And Miles Sanders, running back from the Eagles.
Woo.
So now all of those names, okay, they make sense. But here is where I have an issue. You left 2 very important names off this list, NFL.
Very important.
And now if you add them on after the fact,
you look like idiots.
You look like idiots first and foremost, but you're doing it to pander to the fans, but you're not actually going to vote either of them to win.
No, you're definitely not.
Neither one are going to win. Because at the end of the day, this is a big name popularity contest, which is why it's complete horse shit of why a lot of these awards are just given out, especially the Pro Bowl. I hate it. Mm-hmm. It's stupid.
It is. It really is.
I mean, I like parts of it, but I don't like.
Yeah, but still,
I don't like the All-Star stuff. But the fans voting for stuff. It's a popularity contest.
That's all it ever ends up being. But the fact that you left these two names off this list in Jaguars defensive end Josh Allen, and Jaguars quarterback Gardner Minshew,
the mustache
himself, is an absolute travesty. Because Gardner Minshew alone, I think, has been able to achieve things that even quarterbacks such as Tom Brady weren't able to necessarily achieve. He was able to also come in and have multiple fourth quarter game-winning drives. He was also able to step in when Nick Foles went down that clavicle and actually ended up posting a really great season given what he was given. I feel Gardner Minshew absolutely needs to be on this list because, sure, A.J. Brown had a good year. Yes, Kyler Murray was able to somehow stumble to a 5-10-1 record. Josh Jacobs had a solid year for the Raiders. Miles Sanders ended up being the first Eagles rookie with over 1,000 total scrimmage yards. And, of course, Nick Bosa is playing absolutely amazing for the 49ers. But why are you going to hold off a guy like Gardner Minshew? It just doesn't make sense.
So you can't. We want to try to not compare other positions to other positions, right? That's not fair. But what we can compare is that Gardner Minshew, you mentioned him. He has more wins than any other rookie quarterback, despite only starting 12 games.
Yes.
For the injured Nick Foles. Oh, do you think the wins just alone are not enough for you? Here's some stats, because I know you and I are stat guys. Here's how he ranks against rookie QBs. And this is also with Kyler Murray included. Second in passing yards, 3,200 yards, which was more than Kyler Murray. First in passing yards per game. First in passer rating, and second in rushing yards by a QB. Oh, and he won the Rookie of the Week award 7 times. No one else won it more than once.
But this guy, we're going to leave off this list.
3 game-winning drives in the fourth quarter. And he did it all while being a 6th-round pick. You mean to tell me that this guy is not on the finalist for Rookie of the Year?
Travesty.
It's a freaking talent. It's a freaking popularity contest.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous.
But if you look at Josh Allen, look at Josh Allen's side. He had 10.5 sacks, which is a franchise record set by a rookie, which is also, mind you, more than Nick Bosa. But because Nick Bosa's on a really good team, and yes, he had a great season, don't get me wrong, but Josh Allen had better stats in certain areas than Nick Bosa. So both of them should be on this list, absolutely. I'm not saying replace one for the other.
No, definitely
They both
not.
should be on the list. 5 is just not enough.
No, and considering the amount of rookies that come out year after year that are now expected to perform at a high level, how are you going to keep this list to that small of a grouping? It just doesn't make sense. But, again, here we are. But at the end of the day, though, they will be announcing the Rookie of the Year sometime, I think, right before the Super Bowl. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how this is going to work out. But, man, NFL, what are you doing? Seriously. But anyways, though, that's the end of our Give or Go segment. So now it's time for that sad moment for the week ahead.
Talking about the wild card weekend already earlier in the show. We've got the AFC matchups going on today, NFC matchups going on tomorrow. So be on the lookout for those. College football playoff championship. We're gonna have our preview for that show next week because it is
episode 43.
It is a week from Monday. So in episode 43, we're gonna break down LSU versus Clemson. Who is going to win the national championship?
And if you want to make sure you don't miss that, just make sure you go to facebook.com/PCN Final Score. Go onto our Facebook page, give us a like and a follow. That way you get the notification when we go live next week for episode 43.
Absolutely. Moving on in the NBA, what's to expect in the week ahead? The Orlando Magic have 4 games coming up in this week. They've got a game today at home against the Utah Jazz. That's at 7 o'clock on Fox Sports Florida. 2 more home games after that, Monday and Wednesday against the Brooklyn Nets and Washington Wizards. Friday, they start their road trip. They travel out to Phoenix to play the Suns at 9 p.m.
Yeah, definitely going to be some really good games in the NHL. Tampa Bay Lightning are starting to get into a little bit deeper part of their schedule right now. Definitely going to be interesting to see if they can keep on top of this little rise that they've been seeing as they've been kind of rising up through the standings, being on their little streak as of late. It's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah, the games they've got, they're on the road at Ottawa. For some reason, I couldn't mind to mouth here.
It's Canadian. It's okay.
Yeah, they're on the road. They're on a road trip right now. At the Senators tonight. At the Hurricanes tomorrow. Then they are home for 2 games against the Canucks and the Coyotes on Tuesday and Thursday. Mm-hmm. And then ending out the week next Saturday on the road at your Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, let's go Flyers. It's definitely
so
gonna be a good
those
game.
Games all look pretty winnable. Maybe the Canucks and Hurricanes will be tough, but I mean, they can definitely win against the Senators, Coyotes, and Flyers. I'm sorry. But they can try to move their positioning and get closer to that second standing in the Atlantic Division.
I feel like we got a decent shot now. We're not a pushover. But looking at some basketball action, today at 2 o'clock, you're going to see a little bit of action between number 18 Florida State and number 7 Louisville as they jockey for ACC position, as well as number 23 Iowa taking on number 21 Penn State, also at 2 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. That one, definitely a lot of Big Ten implications in that. Definitely going to be interesting to see how that one's going to shape out as well.
Yeah, lots of games on the docket for today. I mean, man,
there's like 40, 50 games.
Scroll through all these games. There's so many.
Oh, yeah, and of course, number 1 Gonzaga taking on Pepperdine. Hopefully, Pepperdine won't end up being the 7th team to have a massive upset of a number 1 team, but we'll definitely see. I feel like we got to put every number 1 team like on complete watch.
Yep.
Upset watch every single week.
Big game tomorrow in the Big Ten. Number 12 Michigan traveling to East Lansing, playing number 14 Michigan State. That's on CBS at 1:30. See any other ranked games tomorrow? No other ranked games tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
the
the next poll comes out on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. We'll have an update for that in a college basketball segment next week.
Definitely. But make sure that if you want to keep up to date on all things Final Score, that you go over to our social media outlets and give us a like, give us a follow, leave us a rating, and let us know how we're doing. It's very easy. Just go on to Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and like it says up here, just search at PCN Final Score. You can find us there. Also, don't forget that you can follow all of our content platforms, and we got a bunch of them. All you have to do is go on to Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn, or Google Play Music. Also, all listed right down there.
Right down here.
And just search keyword Final Score, one word, and make sure to give us a like and follow there. That way you can be notified every time we drop a new episode fresh for download. It's going to be exciting. But again, this is the end of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us here for episode 42 of Final Score. Again, join us next week for episode 43 live on Facebook Live when we come back, and we'll be doing a breakdown of the college football playoff national championship game. But until then, I'm Chris, that's Craig, and you just watched Final Score. You have yourselves a great night. Podcast City Network.